Welcome to the 1992 Goodyear Nationals. Hi, I'm Colin Russell and with me is Gerald McDornan.
Thanks, Colin. And during the 1992 season, Calder Park has again provided spectacular drag racing action with record numbers of crowds, and of course the highlight of the season is the return of the Nationals to Calder Park Raceway for the first time since 1968.
1 week prior to the event, we had the unfortunate, untimely death of Lee Pascoe, the popular Ballarat Supergas driver. And one of the most moving displays of affection I think I've seen at a drag race meeting was when all the Supergasses came out and paid that magnificent tribute in Lee's memory.
Sad day for Australian drag racing when Lee Pascoe lost his life in a road accident, and the missing man formation was performed by the Supergas Racing Association. Qualifying at the Goodyear Nationals was very, very tough, with some 35 superstock racers trying for just the 16 spots available in the field. And to qualify was a major achievement. Non-qualifiers for superstock included the double A gasser of Raf Perotti, the double B gasser of Mal Harrington, and the A gasser of Ian McCurdy.
Qualifying in top bike saw the sound of the nitro-burning Harleys being overshadowed by the ride of Bill Curry on the Curry and Pierce Kawasaki, putting him into the history books with Australia's first ever 6-second motorcycle pass, a stunning 6.92 at a backed off 185 miles per hour.
In Top Fuel, American Glenn Michaels, driving the Sydney-based Fueler of Santo Rapasada, top qualified with a 5.47 second pass at 271 miles per hour.
Great to see for the first time since 1989 that funny car was contested at the Australian Nationals. Romeo Capitanio top qualified with a 5.79 at 254 mile an hour, and the Queensland-based Camaro of the Athelwood team took out the number 2 spot in the 5-car field.
Pro Comp featured the best of Australia's alcohol dragsters and funny cars. The Elkie Funnies of Alan Dunlop and Wayne Yearbury were imported from New Zealand by Calder Park and Rocket Industries for the Goodyear Nationals. Queensland's Adrian Posibon put together an international team featuring driver Englishman Steve Reed and crew chief Bob Meyer from the United States. Reed qualified the dragster in the number 1 spot with a 6.20, and Jeff Burnett rounded out the 8-car field with a 6.45. Disappointed non-qualifiers included Vic Baker, Dave Hawke, John Noonan, and all the way from New Zealand, Wayne Yearbury.
The debut of rookie Jerry Parenti's Camaro and Hans Van Dyke's brand new VN Commodore were among the highlights of Pro Stock. A best of 8.33 put Van Dyke at number 4 in the 6-car field, with Tony Wedlock in his Buick engine Pontiac taking out the coveted number 1 qualifying position with a personal best of 8.16.
John Zappia came to the 92 Nationals as a clear favourite for competition eliminator. He qualified number 1, but in a later qualifying session he tapped the wall and despite an all-night thrash was unable to take his place in the 16-car field. The small block Chevy of Wayne Jones qualified in the number 2 spot after a series of 6-second passes with a best of 6.79 at 197 miles per hour.
Pro Stock motorcycle, a class that really is working here in Australia now, continues to gain in strength with 11 competitors competing for the 8 spots available in the first round.
In competition bike, a strong field of 22 entries battled it out and qualified for the 16 bike field. Number 1 spot went to Perth's Lou Cotter when he went 35 hundredths of a second under his national record with a 9.15 second pass on his A-altered Kawasaki.
Well, that's how we are after 2 days of qualifying. Gerald, first round, Top Fuel.
Bob Jane T-Mart, Top Fuel qualifying, and leading the order, Colin Russell, is Glenn Michaels from the United States of America. A fabulous 5.47 second pass and the first ever over 270 mile per hour.
And of course, Ray Ward, second position with a 5.707 at 244 miles an hour and qualified with his first ever licence pass, also with a 5.79.
Fantastic, and we're into the action now. Top Fuel drag racing, the number 1 qualifier. Here's Glenn Michaels from the United States of America driving the Santo Rapasada Rocket from Sydney in the Rocket Industries lane, the Oz Nitro dragster of Dave Hoffman and Keith Aegis.
And laying down the smokiest burnout I think we've seen here for a long time, Gerald, is Glenn Michaels.
And both drivers now coming into the stage. Blight, Aegis got the jump. Here comes Micah's pass. Oh, the blower explosion. Aegis back onto it, takes a surprise win. Fantastic, 6.06 seconds, and the crew absolutely berserk.
Well, getting through the first round, this of course being first round of Top Fuel, getting through the first round against the visiting American, absolutely a feather in the young guy's cap. Rodney Bradshaw, a guy that's been around for some length of time, eventually got into the fives, took a little bit of doing, Gerald, but
yes.
Beside him we have the Bandit racing car, the guy that we're talking about before, the man that put in one of the fastest qualifying, or not only qualifying, but licence pass here in Australia. He comes up the line. What do you think would be going through this guy's mind at this very moment?
Absolutely nervous as well. So is Russell Simpson and Paul Dinical, the car owners, as both drivers coming into the staging beams, pumping out raw fuel out of those header pipes. Heads up, nitro burning, top fuel action. Bradshaw got the jump. Ray Ward's car, trying to pick the front wheels off the ground. Blows the wing off in the lights in 5.61 seconds, Colin.
Oh, absolutely, a 5.61. You just don't go any quicker than that when you go into first round. Those guys, if they can get the wing on and get back for the next round, they're going to be a threat whatsoever for this racing.
Charlie DeFilippo now in the Castrol Oils lane. Darren DeFilippo says, Dad, you're okay. Robin Kirby over in the Rocket Industries lane column heads up Top Fuel drag racing again.
Yes, and of course these cars with the direct drive, look at the clutch dust coming out of the back of the Philippos. He's on a strong pass as he goes down and stops the clocks. Have a look at this one, a 571 at 225.05 miles an hour. Hey, great stuff from these guys.
Sitchrome Quality Tools funny car qualifying. We're into the fuel coupes, and Romeo Capitanio leading the charge, Cole, with a 5.79 second pass at 254.95 mile per hour.
And having his first appearance in a funny car also, Ron Atherwood. Great to see him in second position. Jim Carter, of course, in third. Peter Russo, and talking of the man who qualified top, out he comes.
The big Chevy Beretta of Romeo Capitanio about to take a bye in the first round. The beautiful car, the quickest man in Australian drag racing history. Romeo Capitanio, the reigning Australian Top Fuel champion, and where he likes it best, in the big wild fuel coupe.
And you might have noticed that was absolutely a half-track burnout he got from that. John Capitanio saying, you're 100% right. In the Castrol lane comes the Sitchrome car. John says, it's okay, ready to go. He moves up himself into staging right now. This could be another 5-second pass from the guy, the king of the floppers, Romeo Capitanio.
Capitanio launches plenty of clutch ducts, and the flames licking to the sky, runs it through 6.06 seconds, has gone off from qualifying 241 mile per hour.
Well, Jeff and Jill Pratt's Blue Thunder there, another one of the guys that's been around for ages. The Top Fuel car, or the Top Fuel funny car that he ran and won a championship a few years ago. And he, of course, takes on the Motorcraft car of Jungle Jim Carter. Jungle Jim, of course, back from, a temporary retirement, shall we say, for Jungle Jim.
Great to see Motorcraft involved in drag racing in Australia, very much like the United States. Jeff and Jill Pratt, the 1988 Australian funny car champions over in the Rocket Industries lane. Heads up drag racing as both drivers come into the staging beams.
And away they go. Carter got the better of the jump at the halfway mark, but Pratt picks him up and goes flying past round one. Oh, and Carter's had an enormous explosion and a fire. We'll keep our eye on this one. Make sure the safety crews are going to get this one. We'll be able to pick it up on our magnificent Goodyear replay screen, but Carter pops the blower, pops something very bad. A big fire comes out. I would say the onboard fire extinguisher will extinguish that fairly quickly, but we'll wait for the results as they go down towards the bottom end of the strip, Gerald.
A funny car driver's worst nightmare, the nitro fuel funny car fire. But the safety requirements of these cars absolutely ensures that the drivers are safe, and Jim Carter, hopefully, we've got no doubt, will emerge from that quite safely.
Yes, actually, on the replay, it's worse than when we first saw it. In only 6 seconds, it didn't appear to be much of a fire, but when you slow it down, that's a huge fire. It's something that I'm sure Russell Simpson would be absolutely cringing with terror in the pits if he sees something like this, because, as you say, it's a drag racer's nightmare, but certainly a funny car driver's. You're enclosed in that fiberglass shell, and I'm sure that in a few moments the fire crews will get down there and put that fire out.
puts the end to a disappointing meeting for Jungle Jim Carter. The reigning Australian funny car champion, the #1 on the side, the Hawaiian Punch working class hero, Dodge Daytona of Peter and Helen Russo. They're over in the Rocket Industries lane. And in the Castrol Oils lane, the rookie, well, not a rookie, had a 10-year hiatus from the sport of drag racing, Ronnie Applewood.
Yes, made the big trip down. Of course, this is the beautiful part of the Nationals. You get them from every state in Australia. And, of course, all the way down from Queensland is Ron Applewood. And first time we've seen him behind the wheel, gets himself in a second position. I guess very similar to what Ray Ward did. Two rookies, shall we say, in the nitro burning ranks, get themselves into the second position.
Right.
So Russo right now already in stage. Of course, a 20-second rule being invoked there. Applewood comes up right now.
The car popping the flames out the left-hand bank. He brings the car onto the high side, fattens the engine up, richens it, pours plenty of fuel in there. Russo sitting, waiting over in the other lane. Oh, Applewood got the jump, and here comes Russo, just storms on by. The hottest man goes through at 5.82 seconds. 252 mile an hour. Peter Wildman, Helen Russo and Murray Anderson look very happy. Pro Comp category now, Colin, and of course the Pro Comp are the Alky Burners, the Dragsters, the Funny Cars and the Altereds, and leading the charge is Steve Reed from the United Kingdom, partnering with Adrian Posibon for this weekend, the quickest ever pass, 6.20 seconds.
Yes, I'm just wondering how close to a 5-second pass we'll see out of these alcohol cars. It's unbelievable to think that the whole qualifying was covered by less than 0.2 of a second. Jim and Steve Reed, this is Australia's Jim Reed, of course, and Steve Reed. These guys have been around up in Queensland for quite some time, and they're taking on in the far lane. There's so many Reeds here, it's hard to work out who's who. But, of course, the Adrian Posibon racing car with Englishman Steve Reed.
And Bob Meyer, the crew chief and car builder from the United States of America with that car, just overseeing one of his customers, Steve Reed from the United Kingdom, as both drivers now coming into the staging beams. Steve Reed from Australia is the defending Pro Comp national champion.
Put in a time for qualifying of 6.2 against a 6.04, a stunning run from Steve Reed. We've got to call him Pommy Steve Reed because that's what he's known as up here. As the revs come up, enormous revs, a little bit different to the nitro cars or the alcohol burners. They've got a lot more revs, and Steve Reed, Australia's Steve Reed, gets away first, but he's overhauled very quickly by Englishman Steve Reed, who goes through for the win with a 6.04.
6.04, 227 mile per hour. Oh, huge, absolutely smoking burnout as the crowd begins to build here at Calder Park Raceway. Not to be outdone, Alan Dobson from Perth, Western Australia in the Speed Pro car.
The Flying Fireman. This guy is one of the quickest firemen. How would you like to call out for a fire and have this guy arrive? The Speed Pro car, of course, in the Castrol lane. We're looking straight at it right now.
And taking on AA Dale Pedersen in the top class cabinet car. Heads up racing. Oh, both drivers out of shape on and off the throttle. And Dobson storms on through for a fantastic 6.46 second win.
Well, an entirely different sound. The Steve Harker car, of course, this has a twin cam, the McGee engine. That's an unusual engine, and beside him, also sponsored by Harker Transport, is of course the Gary Phillips car. Gary Phillips holding that #1 position on the side of his car.
The reigning national Pro Comp champion, Harker, the big McGee. Oh, beautiful burnout. Both drivers backing up. There is no more a fiercer competitor than Gary Phillips, but taking on his sponsor in the first round, Steve Harker.
Well, Steve Harker, a guy that's certainly not new to drag racing, used to race a Top Fuel bike himself, I believe, quite a few years ago.
Certainly, and matured a little bit and decided to sit where it's safe between the big slick tyres of the funny car. Heads up racing. Oh, both drivers away, picking up the wheels a little bit out of shape, rocking side to side, and it's Phillips. Oh, just pips him. 6.22. Look at this, Colin, side to side in unison.
Well, if we didn't have the CompuLink system in front of us, I would not know who won it. It is just Phillips as they go through there, and have a look at it, 2.26 for both of them.
Fantastic mile per hour. The only altered in the field, the open wheel, a short wheelbase car of Jeff Burnett, the burner, the veteran.
Yes, used to be known as the Alky Burner for years and years. This guy is, well, almost as old as I am, dare I say that.
Oh, and the Kiwi, Alan Dunlop from New Zealand. Truly an international event, this one, with Dunlop shipping the car over, along with the non-qualifier, Wayne Yearbury.
Yes, and you might notice that I'm wearing one of the Kiwi T-shirts right at this very moment. So great to see the guys over from New Zealand, and let's hope that our trophy stays here in Victoria, though.
We know where your loyalties lie, Colin. Don't worry about that. Alan Dunlop brings the revs up. The burner comes in as well, around about 8,000 revs per minute, dropping the clutch, wheels up in the air. The burner looks to have it all. Dunlop close to the centre line, storms through. Oh, 6:34, Colin, and a big upset, 214 mile per hour. Pro Stock qualifying, Tony Wedlock leads the field with an 8.162 second pass, 167 mile an hour, Colin, the factory hot rods.
Yes, and not far behind him, Wayne Missingham down from Sydney for the day with an 8.258, and he holds second position.
The big surprise in qualifying, the new car of Hans van Dyke. On screen right now, 8.335 seconds. He's going to take on the #1 qualifier, Tony Wedlock.
As they do a short burnout to warm up the rear hides, very important to these cars. Absolutely one squillion revs as they come up to the line right now. In fact, you listen to the way these cars take off, they bring the revs right up the rev range and then just drop the clutch sideways.
Both drivers now, revs. Oh, dropping the clutch, and both drivers almost left identical side by side, pulling the Lenco levers. Oh, I can't tell it apart, Cole. Hans van Dyke, the computer says 8.22.
Oh, and would you believe, in actual fact, 8.226 for Van Dyke and an 8.227 for Wedlock, 1,000th of a second separating their times, identical reaction times. These guys are absolutely on a mission.
And we've got Wayne Missingham in the Castrol Oils lane, most definitely allegiance to Australia.
Without any shadow of a doubt, with the Australian flag draped all over the car. Beside him, Queensland's Mike Riley. So a battle of the states here. The 10,000 rev cars, wheels up in the air, and Missingham looks like he's got him covered from one end of the strip to the other. And that's the way the CompuLink says it, with an 8.24 at 164 miles an hour.
Fantastic run for Wayne Missingham. Jerry Parenti, the rookie. Joe Polito, the national champion from Willowbank. Revs up limiter. Oh, the car absolutely screaming. Heads up racing again. Parenti's car popping like you wouldn't know. But Joe Polito, the reigning national champion, streaks away and records an 8.65, 160 mile an hour win.
Well, Pro Stock motorcycle qualifying, we see Sam Skerry holding the #1 position, South Australian, on the Suzuki, followed by Les Donnan, also from South Australia, Phil Howard, Morris Allen, the son, of course, Peter Allen, Jim Hanlon, Warren Dunn, Dale Gilbert, and straight on to Jim Hanlon on the line right now, and beside him, of course, will be the top qualifier, Sam Skerry.
Both on Suzuki. Skerry is in the Castrol Oils lane, Hanlon over in the Rocket Industries lane. The motorcycles are the two-wheel version of the Pro Stock cars, the factory hot rods from Japan.
Yes, and these have a huge leave. Have a watch the way these bikes accelerate out. They actually throw the rider's head right back. They've got to push their backside right into the seat as they come up. This will be an enormous run, says I, and we see the foul light on the bottom of the tree. And unfortunately, Skerry just sits there, shaking his head in disgust as Hanlon goes through for an 8.87 at 149 miles an hour.
Into the next round of racing, and it is the reigning champion, the #1, Phil Bluey Howard, all the way from South Australia, running up against the debut bike of Mr. Dale Gilbert, the man responsible for getting most of these motorcycles looking so good.
And that's something that we ought to comment at this stage, is just how sharp all the vehicles are looking here at the Goodyear Nationals, but particularly the bikes that achieved an enormous amount. #1 is on the side of his bike because he's the #1 bike. Bluey Howard goes through, looks over his shoulder, knows he's got it safe, and does so with an 8.78 at 142 miles an hour.
The quickest motorcycle in Australian Pro Stock history, Les Donnan on the Trevor Birrell motorcycle in the left-hand lane. In the right-hand lane, Warren Dunn, that's the Castrol Oils lane. Oh, heads up racing, and Warren Dunn. Legs were flying like a chook all over the place, Colin. And length on it storms through for a great 8.35 at 153 mile per hour.
Yes, well, you just can't say about these bikes. They're just so fierce on the takeoff, as we saw on that last run. Well, we now have a guy that was all the way down from Northern Territory not all that long ago, of course. That is Scott White. Scott White aboard the GPZ. Beside him, Morris Allen. That's in bike number 3, the son of Pete Allen.
The winner of the Nationals last year at Willowbank Raceway. Oh, and the big lead by Scotty White, 0.464 reaction time, but Morris Allen takes over by half track and just storms on by for an 8.56 win. On the Goodyear replay, we see Scotty White, a great lead by 3/10, but the power of Morris Allen storms on by at half track.
Well, Top Fuel motorcycle qualifying, the nitro-burning Top Fuel bike of Bill Curry taking out number 1 position. Not surprising, Peter Allen 2nd, Jay Upton all the way over from Western Australia 3rd, then Greg Shepherd, and so on down the line right through to Graham Slapp of Rapid Creek in Northern Territory.
And of course, Bill Curry made history aboard this motorcycle in qualifying with a 6.924 second pass, the first sub-7 second quarter mile pass by a nitro-burning bike in the Southern Hemisphere.
Well, we have on the line right now the American style of nitro bike. That is a Harley, of course, the Harley of Murray Johnson taking on the might of the Kawasaki factory from Bill Curry. Bill Curry here at West Meadows, Victoria, putting out probably 600 horsepower. What a huge amount of power to have nowhere else but between your legs. Thank you very much. You can do that one, Gerald.
Nestled between your legs. So what about a bit of Milwaukee muscle of Murray Johnson? The debut of Bill Curry. The tyre straight on that run. The tyre absolutely off. And Curry sits up and goes through nice and easy. 7.97 seconds.
On the line right now we have Jay Upton all the way over from Western Australia. This guy always puts on an immaculate show with the team. Unfortunately, his competitor has broken, so this will be a solo pass by Jay Upton. He's got nothing really to prove, Gerald, but I tell you what, he won't hang around. Have a look at this, lays the power down, black tracks it from one end to the other. Look at the flames coming out behind the back of his leathers, and he stops the clocks with a 7.93 at 171 miles an hour.
Oh, absolutely sensational. What about the old stager, Pommy Pete Allen aboard the Warlock Top Fuel motorcycle, Cole?
And beside him we have Cypress Woodard. He's across from South Australia, so it's a battle of the states once again. Pommy Pete arrived out here about 15 years ago, a motorcycle under one arm and a two-spokes box in the other, but I tell you what, he's putting a beautiful run down. He's getting round the bottom end, and Pommy Pete Allen goes through with a 750 at 184.23 miles an hour.
Another of the Fuel Harleys, probably the most rapidly growing class in Australian drag racing at the moment, and that of course is Greg Shepherd, and all of the way down from Darwin is the Graham Slapp bike, and Shepherd storms away. The Milwaukee muscle just pulls away from Slapp, and he rolls it through the other end and goes 792, 172 mile per hour.
Well, Super Stock saw a magnificent field, 32 cars vying for the positions to get into this round. And I'll tell you what, we had some magnificent racing, all running either under or on the national record by so many seconds. I didn't think I'd ever see so many national records being knocked on the door so often.
Fantastic, and unfortunately 16 racers had to put their cars on the trailer. We're into the quarterfinals, of course, the big black Castrol Chevy of Victor Bray, and he's going to take on Peter Kapiris in the first round, and Victor Bray got there with a first round defeat of Lucky Valeri from New South Wales on the Goodyear Nationals replay as we see him go through.
And Peter Kapiris, the way he got through into this round, he took on Stephen Wyatt and he fixed him up in a very big way in round one. Has the weight, and it's a long time to wait, but watch Kapiris go as he gets through and makes sure that he'll get into the quarterfinal and comes on real strong at the bottom end, and Kapiris goes through and gets through into round one.
Into the racing action, and oh, Peter Kapiris not to be outdone with a burnout. Coming up to the staging beams now, the double A gasser against the double B gasser. Almost heads up racing. Victor Bray storms away. Kapiris moves around. Oh, big blow up. Big Bray goes on through. 7.69 as we go to the Goodyear Nationals replay.
Oh, a huge blow up from Caperas. Keep your eyes on this one. You'll see the bonnet start to come up. A big explosion happens on this car, and one big boom, and it's all over, Rover.
Terry Clinch all the way from Perth, Western Australia, running E-Gas in the Holden Chimera. Turlin Aerials, the sponsors of the red car. He got through into the quarterfinals by defeating all from the other side of the country, Steve Packman, all the way down from Queensland. Packman red-lighted in the VN Holden Commodore.
And his opponent is going to be Donna Sisma. Donna, of course, put in some great runs, Gerald, and as we expect, holding that #1 CMS, she got in by defeating who we thought may have done very well, that, of course, being the Samet brothers in the Double D Gasser. But that's not the way it was going to be for this 1992 Goodyear Nationals.
Back to the action, and lights come down. Sisma gets the handicap head start. Fancy letting her get out of the line first. She's pulling through those gears beautifully in the S&D Motor Body Works car and takes the win in the quarterfinals with a 10.48. The Lifestyle T-shirt Commodore of Kim Petterwood in the first round defeated Wally Priori in a top priority car from South Australia, Cole, and the Holden AMS Commodore. Oh, what a machine that is.
What a heartbreak it must be in the Nationals. One run and you're out. Peter Ridgway, well, this is a guy that loves to show everybody the underneath the car. He defeated to get into this round
Brendan McSweeney in the Double B Gasser from Perth. Ridgway's beautiful car running AMP, as is Kim Petterwood. And the Pontiac Trans Am beautifully presented. Virtually a heads-up contest between these two. The lights will come down, wheels up, super stock action, just the way it should be. Both drivers absolutely storming down the quarter mile. Ridgway smoking, in trouble, gets the win under the record, 9.46.
And into the quarter-final comes Tony Busher and Benny Gatt. Benny Gatt got into the finals by taking on Adrian Kelly. Adrian Kelly, the 2 times Pro Stock champion, is not going to make it this time, so he's going to miss out on getting through into the first round of competition.
And Gatt's opponent, Tony Busher, of course, defeated the big Chevy Camaro of Lunchy Crawlin Borders all the way over from South Australia, as we see on the Goodyear Nationals replay. But back to the action right now, Colin, and it's a classical Holden versus Ford confrontation. The Ford people, Benny Gatt over in the Rocket Industries lane, the headmaster car of Tony Busher in the Castrol Oils lane.
Both cars, of course, being handicapped on the national records. Can Gatt do it? Will the Ford fans have something to rejoice? Busher gets the wheels up. He's away. A good solid run. A little bit of wheel wobble for it. But Gatt comes at him. Look at Gatt coming. The big screaming Ford. But has it got enough Ford power to get there? No. Tony Busher gets there with a 10.56 at 127.6 miles an hour.
Competition eliminator field is led by John Zappia's awesome Double B altered Holden Monaro from Perth, 694 at over 200 mile per hour. But Colin, due to damaging the car in qualifying, Zappia can't front for competition.
But I'll tell you who will now hold #1 spot, the screaming Double C dragster of Wayne Jones, as we move straight into the quarterfinals right now. And have a look at that crowd.
Oh, fantastic. Over 35,000 people here viewing Chris Soldatis' beautiful Brogy Roadster, and in the first round of competition he took on Ian Powell from Shepparton. Powell had replaced Zappia in the field. His opponent, of course, was Graham Silk, the national champion, running up against Maury Huckle in that first round. The Goodyear replay shows Silk advancing to take on Chris Soldatis.
Well, this will be a very tough run for both of them. Graham Silk always runs on or under the national record. You've got to say he's going to be a crowd favourite. Oh, and I tell you what, he's put on a beautiful hole shot from Chris Soldatis, and Soldatis has got to go hard to get through him, but doesn't do it. And Graham Silk moves one step forward to a national title.
And the awesome Weldwell Engineering Double C dragster of Wayne Jones, and in the first round of competition he got past the outlaw Double B altered of Rod Burton from South Australia.
And moving into the next round will be John Polglacey. He'll be against Jones, but I wondered about the Blumensteins. Did they have something else on their mind? Because earlier in the afternoon, the Yellow Tirana, driven by Shane Cable, seemed to get itself into all sorts of problems during round 1 of Super Sedan.
Yes, the car on a big pass runs 8 seconds, goes down through the end of the quarter mile, hard on the brakes, the car turns left, slides, starts to barrel roll, right across the track just behind Tony Diviak. The car comes to a stop after 8 rollovers, but a testament to the safety factor of these cars, Shane Cable emerged unhurt.
John Polglacey comes up into the Castrol lane. Beside him in the Rocket Industries lane, we have the screaming Wayne Jones, little 350 small block Chev, but he's got the weight and Jones has got to try and outdrive him. He gets the halfway mark and the screaming Chevy goes through.
Oh, and records a 678 at 197 mile per hour.
Well, the battle from South Australia. South Australia's Jeff During and the fastest hairdresser in South Australia, John Handley. During gets away first, but Handley seems to hesitate. Oh, big pop. You can see it there. The blower belt comes off, so Handley, unfortunately, now becomes a spectator.
And During's opponent in the quarterfinals, of course, is Eddie Cianciaruso. He got there the easiest way in the first round, and the Fairbanks Panels Datsun 260Z took the bye. So back to the racing action, the quarterfinals. During off in hot pursuit of the Datsun. The big Chrysler supercharged engine screams. Cianciaruso breaks During 7:59.
Debbie Reed took on Ian Seckold into the quarterfinals, and to get there, Debbie had a fairly easy run in the afternoon against the Ebbing Street Performance Bert Williamson car. A good run from Debbie Reed, as we always expect from her husband and wife team.
Ian Seckold is her opponent, and of course in round 1 of competition, the Double C Dragster got the bye. Last year, Seckold, of course, the runner-up in competition eliminator. So we're into the racing action again. The supercharger screaming from Seckold's car, but Debbie Reed gets the lead first, and she storms away right from the starting line. Just keeps maintaining that difference, 7.99. Competition motorcycle we're into, and of course leading the qualifying was Lou Cotter all the way from Perth, Western Australia, aboard the A-altered by Kawasaki with a 9.152 second pass, over 3/10 under the national record, Colin, and he was leading another one of the Sandgropers, Gavin Forbes.
And coming out right now, we have Dennis Ackland aboard the Wards Express Suzuki. Dennis Ackland has been running so close to the national record for a long, long time. And of course, Wards Express being one of his sponsors. In fact, I'd say the only guy that has been his sponsor has been Wards Express.
Fantastic. Lou Cotter, of course, in the first round took on Gary Thomas from the opposite end of the country in Queensland. Thomas aboard the Suzuki didn't quite have the power, and Cotter just pulled away and took the win.
The same thing happened in round 1 with Ackland doing it all over John Parker. And Ackland from woe to go gets there, but I tell you what, the big Harley came at him at the bottom end, but not to be. And we see Ackland into the quarterfinal.
And here we got Ackland now. He's in the Castrol Oils lane. Cotter, who won the grand finals last year at Sydney's Eastern Creek Raceway, he's over in the Rocket Industries lane. And the big red cherry, Colin, it's all over right at the start line, and Luke Cotter advances to the semi-final.
Into the next quarterfinal were Paul Andrews and Carlo Agostini. Paul Andrews, he got there by riding right around Craig Bonwick. Bonwick, of course, on the magnificent Harley, thumping its way down the strip, but Paul Andrews holds that #1 plate, and the reason he does so is quite evident by the replay.
Certainly does very well. And Carlo Agostini's opponent in the first round of competition bike on the Goodyear Nationals replay, of course, was John Kaiser on the A Street bike. Close race, but Agostino took it. Now back to the action, and as Paul Andrews leaves the line, oh, Agostino breaks a chain. You can see that coming right off the bike, and it allows Paul Andrews an easy path through to the semi-finals with a 10.36.
Into the quarterfinals, we had Gavin Forbes taking on John Phillips. Gavin Forbes rode around Terry Emery to get into the quarterfinal, and here's his run coming up right now. Poor old Terry looking resplendent in his leathers, but couldn't make up what Gavin Forbes pulled on him from the start line. They were followed by John Phillips, Long John Phillips, Eclipse racing bike of John Phillips, and he was taking on Jeff McKetty. Jeff McKetty likewise couldn't make up the gap that John Phillips pulled on him from the start line.
So we're back to the action now. Gavin Forbes in the crowd side lane, the Castrol lane, taking on Long John Phillips. Both riders get a clean green, and it is a streak down to the end of the quarter mile. Phillips is holding Forbes out and puts him back on the trail of the Western Australia. 10.64 and everyone's happy.
Also into the quarterfinals rode Andy Wilson and Reese Endicott Davies. The little ex-Tasmanian Andy Wilson took care of Steve Smith early in competition in round one and did it with a magnificent pass, as we can see on the replay.
The Nitro Harley of Smith just wasn't quite up to it, as was Peter Anderson in his matchup with Reese Endicott Davies. Endicott Davies holding him out all of the way down the quarter mile, and of course that's the way that he advanced.
And the final pairing saw Reese Endicott Davies taking on the ex-Taswegian Andy Wilson. Andy Wilson keeps the bike, trying to keep it down on the ground. They had the front wheel up there, monos it down to the three-quarter mark, goes through with an easy win of 9.74 at 140.3 miles an hour.
Oh, the smoke billowing up into the crowd as we're into the quarterfinals of the John Taverner Chassis Supergas bracket.
Of course, a common dial-in of 9.90. Stephen Crook, we call him Mr. Supergas, 440 cubic inches of Chrysler, 454 cubic inches with a Dominator car of Grant Hobday. It's anybody's race, as Supergas always is, but Crooky's slowing down. They're both slowing down. They're going over the line together. Stephen Crook wins by 4 thousandths of a second.
Oh, look at the replay again. And Stephen Crook, the national champion, gets there 4 thousandths of a second, 9.96 to 10.00. Colin Lloyd, the head-sent cylinder head Commodore in the Castrol oil lane. Andrew Roberts in the small block powered Chimera over in the Rocket Industries lane. Colin heads up, 990 Supergas action. They're away, great lead by both drivers. It's side by side. Typical Supergas race all of the way down the quarter mile. Let's go to the computer. Roberts gets there, 997. Oh, 54 thousandths of a second separating the two at the finish line.
Probably the success story of the whole Nationals is how close these guys run to their common dial-in of 9.90.
Hugo Di Gianvincenzo, I tell you what, that's not a mouthful, is it, Cole?
But it's something we've practiced for quite some time. And Hugo takes on in the other lane the Mastromano brothers, Mark Mastromano.
The top qualifiers here last night won $1,000 for being the closest to the perfect 9.90. But Hugo got out on them this time. I tell you what, they're going to need everything they can. The pink Hugo's Commodore got there. He did 9.95.
I tell you what, as we see it again, it's very hard to pick, but Hugo seems to have half a car length all the way down, wins by 1/10 of a second, and that's where he got it, right on the start line.
I tell you what, winners are grinners, especially with reaction time wins.
Tony Diviak in the Aussie Trackwear quarterfinals of Super Sedan got himself a bye run straight into the semi-final, so a nice easy pass. But of course it's very important, Gerald, that he tries out the car at this time of night, because this being a die-your-own bracket, he wants to know what it'll run.
And it gets down 10.92 seconds, Colin. That is very important information as he goes into the semi-finals. Diviak, of course, narrowly avoided Shane Cable's roll earlier this afternoon. More quarterfinal action in the Aussie Trackwear Super Sedan bracket. The Marrickville Mobster from Sydney, New South Wales, John Koukidis in lane 1, dialing in at 9.55 seconds. In the Rocket Industries lane, Glenn Jones, Cole, has dialed in at an 11.99, right on the bump of Super Sedan.
That's right, 11.99 for the Dodgy brothers. Very important that they don't run quicker than that dial-in, of course, because that will be a disqualification, an automatic loss, unless they both go quicker. We'll explain that as the night goes on too. But Glenn Jones, he's got the lead. Has he been able to judge this to perfection? He mustn't run quicker than 11.99, and he must win as well. He got through first, and with a safe 12.15 and a win margin of 0.047 of a second.
So we look to the replay again, and a good lead for Glenn Jones in the Dodgy Brothers car. He controlled the race from start to finish, I'm sure. Yes, he did. 0.47 reaction time, had Kukitis at the start by 1/10 of a second, and it really pushed Kukitis all of the way. Jones through to the semi-finals.
The next Super Sedan pairing of Jeff Hislop and Chris Shaw in the Tokyo Taxi.
The little Ford-powered Mazda Coupe from Shepparton in Victoria, dialing in 10.20 seconds. Hislop 9.65, so just under 0.6 of a second, separating the two at the start line. Shaw shall have the handicap advantage.
Yes, about 1.5 lights on the tree. You'll see a staggered light come down when we see it from behind, but he's just got the advantage. Brings it in. Revs start to come up now. Tokyo Taxi, all the way from Shepparton, gets the nose up in the air, just that little bit too quick, and you see that dreaded red light, and that's it. You're just all over for that guy, and he can just go back to the pits and watch the operations of people like Jeff Hislop.
Long haul back to Shepparton, Colin, when you've red lighted at the Nationals at Calder Park. And Jeff Hislop, I'm sure that all of the way down the track, he would have been tapping on the dashboard saying, "You beauty, we're through to the next round." Well, will this be the upset of the meeting, Colin, as we've got Arthur Telford in the Daihatsu all of the way down from Caloundra in Queensland. He's going to be running up against the Knox Motor Trimmers XD Falcon of David Burke from Melbourne.
So we're looking at a David and Goliath confrontation, and we always have a bit of a smile on our faces. It's a small block Ford. Small block, Gerald?
In David Burke's car, yes it is, Cole. Small block to 580 cubes. As Telford's been pushed back, he's gone, and Burke advances to the quarterfinals. I tell you what, Goliath just grabbed the rock and threw it back.
As we see in the replay, he had nobody to beat, but he still pushed it all the way with a 9.09. A 9.09, a slow reaction time, had nothing to prove, 145 miles an hour through the traps. Quarterfinal time comes up for modified. We have Kelly Schaefer in the Rocket Industries lane, taking on in the Castrol lane, the Skid Row kid, Eric Goodsward.
The AA modified altered of Goodsward running the nitrous oxide injection. Schaefer has made the trip to Melbourne all of the way from northern Queensland. She launches the car beautifully. Goodsward off in hot pursuit. An altered match-up here as they get down to the end of the quarter mile. Goodsward, I think, has got it. He has 8.78. Wendy's very happy. The crowd's happy. They get to see Wendy again.
As we pick up the Goodyear replay, it looks like Kelly Schaefer read the lights to perfection, but Eric Goodsward seems to come on very strong in the mid-range, and by the 8th of a mile has picked up Kelly Schaefer and goes through with a winning margin of 63 hundredths of a second.
Kevin Jenner coming into the Castrol Oils lane, dialing in 10.65 seconds. Bob Jane T-Mart modified quarterfinals. Richard Jansen in the Rocket Industries lane, the Mr. Gloss Hot Rod, dialing in 10.15 seconds, Colin. 0.5 of a second separating the two at the start line.
Just the one light on the tree, and you watch Jansen. He won't wait too long. He's a master at the lights, and this hot rod of Jansen's is going to put in a real strong run. He only moves out for the first 100 metres, and already he's got Jenner, and I would say he controls this. He can take his foot off because this is a dial your own. He doesn't want to break out on an easy run for Richard Jansen, a 10.31. So that dial-in was very safe for him, Gerald.
Oh, yes, we see it. Jansen, a great lead there. Jenner's car pulled a bit to the right. He had to bring it back on. The car went off. Jansen, 0.470 light, and won by just under 1/10 of a second.
The magnificent 1934 Ford Hot Rod, Chev-powered, of Rayburn S, comes up into the Castrol lane, and beside him, over in your side, Gerald,
it's the Spitzer modified Roadster of Greg Roberts from South Australia. Roberts imported the car last year from the United States. He is dialed in at a 9.25 second. Burness at 10.20. Burness is holding him out as they head off down the quarter mile. He gets there first. He's broken out though. Roberts gets there with an 8.32. The wind comes up in his lane. Burness must have broken out as we see the Goodyear replay.
Yes, I'm fairly sure when you see it, he's actually gone quicker. Yes, he has a 10.18. He's broken out by 0.02 of a second, and that's a safe one for Roberts. Well, the amazing big cat, the V12 Jag of Michael Utting, dialed in with a 9.80.
He's running up against Alan White, the 1986 Australian modified champion, dialing in 9.50. And New South Wales versus South Australia. Peter Singles, the chief starter, said, Alan, get your car to the staging beams. Let's go racing.
What an unusual noise coming from this Jag. It sounds like two six-cylinder motors side by side. Alan White goes too early, leaves the big dreaded Red Cherry, and Michael Utting moves into the semi-finals.
Oh, we get to hear the big cat scream again in the semi-finals. We see that, yes, the early lead for Alan White on the Goodyear replay. Mick Utting very, very happy. 0.399 of a second, red light, 1/1000th of a second, too quick, Colin. Hey, bad luck, son. I tell you what, and he ran perfect to his dial-in.
Well, modified bike, quarter-final, Alan Bleisner gets himself a bye run into the semi-finals. Our Army chef, obviously his competitor can't make it to the line, so we find the modified bike of Alan Bleisner doesn't take it easy because he's got to do that dial-in again, Gerald.
He certainly does, and top qualified with an 8.73 earlier, ran 8.73. How consistent is that?
Yes, and I'd say his wife was very happy too there on the start line.
Goodyear modified bike bracket, Simon Jones, the 1991 Nationals champion. He's dialed in at 11.60 second time, running up against the green machine of Angelo Ganides. Dialed in at a 10.70. Good leads by both of the riders. They're heading off down the quarter miles. Ganides looks to be drawing in Jones. He sits up even as they go through and takes the win by over 1/10 of a second.
Looking at the replay on this one, Gerald, it appeared that Simon Jones had some sort of a problem. He looked back over his shoulder, his leg never really got itself settled. Something amiss, I would say, and Ganides, a fairly easy win for him. Next pairing for modified bike quarter-final, we've got Peter Cochrane. He's taking on Graham Bickle. Lane one, we have Cochrane dialed in
at a 9.65. Bickle's dialed in a 9.00. Bickle's in hot pursuit. It looks as though Cochrane will hold him out. He did. He got the win with a 9.58 second. A double breakout by both riders. Double breakout, Colin, but the reaction time and less of a breakout for Cochrane. He goes through to the semi-final. The last pairing in the Goodyear modified bikes quarterfinals, of course, is Kevin Haynes running up against Sam's Animal of Phil Parker. Parker dialed in at 10.78 second. Haynes in the Castrol Oils lane, 10.40, Cole.
Well, the one thing about Parker, he shows absolutely no mercy for this engine. Have a listen to the screaming revs of the Parker machine as he goes down there, glances over his shoulder. He's controlling the race from one end to the other, slows down so as he doesn't break out, and that's exactly what happens. He's a clear winner, as we can see on the replay, Gerald.
A 10.81 second time for Phil Parker aboard Sam's Animal, and also won it at the start line, a good .469 reaction time. The quarterfinals of Super Street Eliminator, John Shikolovich, all the way from Sydney, Colin, and a dial in at 10.03 seconds means nothing. He's on a bye through to the semi-finals.
Yes, normally dials in at around about a 12.9, so they've put up the national record, which is the only way we can do that on a bye run, and he stops the clocks with a 13.21 at 101 miles an hour. Dominator Converters Super Street quarterfinals, we see Bob Ilioski on a time of 12.05, taking on Michael McKenna with a 12.80. Michael McKenna gets the lead first. He just makes the best advantage of that, and he covers Bob Ilioski all the way to the bottom end. Ilioski comes at him, but not to be done. He gets there first. We see Michael McKenna just crossing the line first.
0.05 of a second separated those two at the finish line. McKenna took the win with his 12.97 second run. Quarter mile, number plate says it all. It's Brenton Creasy's BE Higher Holden 1-tonner taking on the Ford of Gary Paciocco in the Castrol Lane. Paciocco's dialed in 12.00 seconds, 12.20 for Brenton Creasy, Cole.
Oh, talk about snooze, you lose. Creasy sat there just too long. There's no way he can catch up to Gary Paciocco, and Paciocco controls the race from one end to the other and goes through a clear winner with a time of 12.29. Watch this one on the replay.
See it on the Goodyear replay, and noticing Gary Paciocco looking over his shoulder all of the way, just controlled that race from start to finish.
Yes, the adrenaline's really starting to run right now. The hairs on the back of my neck are starting to stand up, just like those flames are standing up out of Keith Agis's Oz Nitro car. The team looking at the car, they look like they've got some concerns. I don't think so, though. A buy run for this car. I tell you what, how would you be trying to take on the Nationals, a young guy like Keith Agis?
Oh, look at that car pumping raw fuel into the night air, and 35,000 people here getting to smell the beautiful fumes of nitromethane. And Agis launches the car beautiful off the throttle just at around quarter track and coasts through down the quarter mile, Colin, into the final of the Goodyear Nationals.
Didn't have to prove anything, does it, with a 9.79 at only 89 miles an hour.
Looking at the replay, the car launched so strong, and the 60-foot time, 1.00 seconds. That car is on a high to low 5-second pass.
The second pairing for the semi-final of Top Fuel. Charlie DeFilippo comes through, does an enormous burnout in front of a very appreciative crowd, gives them a little wave. Ray Ward does his burnout, cools up beside Charlie DeFilippo, and likewise signals the plaudits of the crowd.
Oh, Colin, drama. Charlie DeFilippo being shut down by Steve Allen on the start line.
Oh, bad luck for him. So Ray Ward automatically goes into the final, doesn't have a lot to prove, buttons off nice and early, goes through for a leisurely pace of 6.88 at 128 miles an hour.
Just looking at the Goodyear replay here, Ray Ward launches away beautifully, huge amount of clutch dust, 1.05, 60 foot. He's going to give Agis problems in the final.
Semi-final time for nitro-burning funny cars. The Blue Thunder Jeff Pratt car takes on the Sid Chrome car of Romeo Capitanio. Capitanio's crew lift up the body to turn on the second fuel pump. Huge amount of fuel going in now as you see the car richening up, pumping out raw fuel. Likewise, Pratt's got the automatic fuel turn on with his car. He's done it from inside the car. Gerald, they move right up to the start line right now. It appears that Capitanio's having problems staging. He's moving forward. Pratt's got his car into stage. The starter will have no option in a moment. He'll let him go after 20 seconds. Capitanio's still having trouble staging. I don't know what's going to happen here. The lights are about to come down. Pratt looking across. John Capitanio running up, telling Romeo to move back. Hey, anything could happen here. The tension is building up in the air as the two funny cars are sitting there. One of them's going to burn down if they're not careful. Capitanio still hasn't staged. Oh, I don't know what's going to happen here. Jeff Pratt, in the meantime, sitting there patiently. Oh, red light for Capitanio. He didn't stage. He's not happy. He's just sitting there. And Pratt goes through a beautiful run from Pratt. Goes right through to the bottom end. Oh, I say a beautiful run, but it didn't look so good at the very end. Hey, Capitanio, not happy. The crowd staying with him. Capitanio said, look at the tree. Oh, I wonder what happened there, Gerald.
Oh, I really don't know. Romeo Capitanio's car couldn't stage properly. The jiggling around of the bodies under the weight of 4,000 horsepower must have been playing havoc with the lights. We see Johnny Capitanio coming in saying, come in forward. Romeo backed out a bit, trying again to come in forward. The Sid Chrome quality tools Chevy Beretta of Romeo Capitanio in all sorts of dramas. And the chief starter here at Calder Park Raceway, Mr. Peter Singles, had nothing else to do but to send Jeff Pratt on his way. But Colin, even though he's gone through to the final round for the second time in 3 years, he had drama at the finish line. And the drama is absolutely continuing because of the oil down in lane 1, Colin. Peter Russo has been instructed into lane 2 to stage the car and go through to the final.
Yes, and he birthed into the final, but I tell you what, it's not the way he'd like to do it. But they've got to give Jeff Pratt time, of course, to get back, to come out and hopefully run a dual pass to see who's the Australian funny car champion.
Final Pro Comp. We've got Steve Reed from England going into the Rocket Industries lane. In the Castrol lane, the Speed Pro Oldsmobile Forenza of Alan Dobson.
The fastest fireman in the West, and I guess the question on everybody's lips, will Steve Reed from England pick up a 5-second pass in an alcohol car, something that's never been done anywhere except in the US of A. Will we see it here tonight, Gerald?
Well, certainly the conditions are right for it. The people on the mound behind, 35,000 people here at Calder Park Raceway. Reed went 6:04 in the first round. Can he back that up for a new national record? Heads up Pro Comp Racing.
Pro Comp has been absolutely amazing over this series. Oh, look at Reed, he's pulling away from Dobson. Dobson all over the track, but Reed gets there. Oh, another 6:02. Is this a bracket racer or what?
And the Goodyear replay shows both drivers coming in, and the lights even leave Reed sort of strike the tyres for one. Look at Dobson on the edge of the track. Oh, absolutely sensational racing. .994, 60 foot for Steve Reed. That is moving. 6:15 for Alan Dobson.
Gary Phillips takes on Jeff Burnett in the Elkie Burner for the other semi-final. Going into the Pro Comp final will be one of these cars as they move along right now for the burnout. Oh, strong burnout from Gary Phillips, and the only altered that we've got running in Pro Comp in Australia, Jeff Elkie Burner, comes down the strip right now. Backs back. This is the part that really takes all the expertise, getting that fine burnout, getting the water off the tyres right now, putting some heat into them. They move in, of course, into the pre-stage area. Very, very cagey runners, both of these, both from north of the border, both from up in Queensland. The Elkie Burner comes up. They're both ready, waiting for the lights to come down. In the starter's hands right now. The tree about to come down.
Oh, a lead by both of them. Burnett wheels in the air, Phillips to the side of the track, and the Burner's pulled off an upset, knocks off the Australian champion, 6:36.
Oh, tell you what, you would not have thought that possible. And altered into the final against Tommy Steve Reed. This is going to be something to see. The fans are going to go away. Look at that, 173 mile an hour at the 1/8 of a mile. He covered him from one end of the strip to the other.
Semi-finals of Pro Stock Eliminator. What a dream debut. Hans Van Dyke's new Holden Commodore, a bye through to the final, Colin.
Well, it's going to be a dream run for Hans. He used to drive the old black taxi. This one he calls the wedding car, and I guess this is the honeymoon run.
The final pairing of Pro Stock semi-finals. Wayne Missingham running up against Joe Polito. Colin, another fantastic General Motors versus Ford confrontation.
Well, one of these is going to be facing another General Motors car, of course, that being Hans Van Dyke in the final. But the beautiful D&D racing car, the car that is basically draped in the Australian flag, takes on the might of the Ford of Joe Polito as they come up into stage once again. And these cars will, of course, stage with the normal, traditional screaming revs. Both pre-stage lights on. We're waiting for the starter to press the button. Up come the revs. Watch these front wheels of these two cars.
Oh, it's a burned out Colin. They're hanging out. Missingham is not going into the staging beams. Oh, in he goes. The revs come up. Oh, wheels up. Polito, red light, bad luck. Ford fans, the General will have a double car run in the final. Missingham, 8:21.
Oh, as we watch this one once again, Polito left that little bit early. The one thing that would have happened, Gerald, Missingham would not have seen that light. He'd have been looking at his half of the tree. He would have gone and he drove it right to the end. Have a look at that. He's gone the 60 foot in 1:31 Polito to a 1:13 to Missingham, and Polito with some problems at the halfway mark.
Semi-final of Top Fuel motorcycle. Oh, the big smoky burnout from Jay Upton. The roar of 35,000 people.
I tell you what, and the roar of nearly 700 horsepower out of each of these engines tries to drown those 35,000 people. But have a look at the flames coming out of Jay Upton's bike. The guy to beat, Bill Curry, put in the fastest time we've ever seen in Australia, under 7 seconds. Oh, and it's all over. 7 seconds from now, we're going to find somebody that's a winner. Bill Curry glances over his shoulder. Boy, has he got time to do that. Stops the clocks with a 7:08 at 185.
Oh, fantastic. We'll go to the Goodyear replay. Jay Upton, look at those flames licking. The crew member urging him on. He's leaning the bike over. But Bill Curry, as we see again, 7.08 seconds at 185 mile an hour.
Well, into the other semi-final comes the Nitro bike, the Harley bike of Greg Shepherd, but I don't see Pommy Pete. Pommy Pete obviously with problems, so this will be another bye run.
And Greg Shepherd leaves the line. Pommy Pete, the defending Nationals champion, all over Red Rover. Shepherd runs through 7.95 seconds. What about these motorcycles, Colin, the big feet twin of the Milwaukee Muscle?
Yes, and it's very interesting to note the times coming up. They're taking like 5.18 for the eighth of a mile, does another 3 seconds, and he's at the end of the quarter of a mile.
Semi-finals, Pro Stock motorcycle, the two-wheel versions of the factory hot rods. Jim Hanlon over in the Rocket Industries lane doing the burnout, and he's running up against the number one, Phil Bluey Howard. Oh, drama, Colin. He is going back. Howard's going back, being shut off, and Hanlon, oh, a bye through to the final.
Yes, Fat Cass Hoskins not looking very pleased about that whatsoever. So Hanlon, a tough competitor at the best of times, gets a bye run, takes it relatively easy. Remember, these bikes can run round about 8.3, 8.4s. We'll see what Hanlon does on this run. Stops the clock with an 8.54. You'd hardly call that taking it easy.
Not at all. As we see on the Goodyear replay, a .195 reaction time. That would have been a red light had he have been running against an opponent.
The other semi-final for Pro Stock, Morris Allen trying to do what his father couldn't do in the rounds before him. He comes up into the Rocket Industries lane, and beside him we have Les Donnan. Les Donnan all the way across from South Australia. Can he get up and try and take on the might of Morris Allen?
The quickest Pro Stock motorcycle in Australia, taking on the reigning Nationals champion Morris Allen. Staging beams, both of them coming up. Revs about to hit 11,000 on the limiter. And away, a beautiful lead by both of the riders. Oh, looking very even, but the power of Donnan's bike draws away at half track. 8.36 for the win, Cole. And let's look at the Goodyear replay as both of these riders come into the staging beams. What a great race. An
enormous race. It was hard to pick who had the better of the lead because they seemed so even. Donnan obviously got it when we see it on the replay. Oh, look at this. Reaction time for Donnan, perfect. 4.4 of a second and a 1.24 at the 60 foot for both of them.
Semi-finals of Super Stock Eliminator in the Castrol lane. The Keith Black Power 57 Chevy of Victor Bray.
And of course, Superstock running on the national records. Almost 3 seconds separate the two national records of these two vehicles. Donna Sisma dipping under the national record by almost half a second. Not to be outdone, so is Victor Bray. 10.92 to a 7.96. Victor.
So nearly 3 seconds head start to Donna Sisma. She's running CMS. Victor Bray, double B gas. Oh, listen to the thumping of the big Keith Black supercharged engine. The crowd favourite here at Calder Park Raceway is Victor Bray, but gee, he's going to have to be patient, Colin.
That's one of the hardest things, having the chase. You've got to cut a perfect reaction time to make sure you can pick up someone that's dipping under the national record. Donna Sisma's up and going, wheels up in the air. She's got him covered, I would say. Oh, have a look at the wheel stand. All wheels off the ground of Victor Bray. Oh, disaster for Victor Bray. Success for Donna Sisma.
And Donna Sisma under the national record. We'll go to the Goodyear replay. Donna Sisma, fantastic start. The car leaving the line beautifully. Victor Bray waits. Watch this. 4 wheels off the ground. The sparks. Oh, like a 747 reaching for the sky. Let's watch Victor Bray again. Like the space shuttle heading off into orbit, Colin.
He definitely launches the car completely off the ground, stands on the back bumper bar, but don't take it away from Donna Sisma. She is 0.43 under the national record.
The next pairing of Superstock Eliminator is Tony Busher against Peter Ridgway, but Colin, Busher, again, the advantage of the bye through to the final.
Yes, unfortunately, Ridgway really did hurt the motor in that run where we saw all the smoke coming out from underneath. So Busher's got the very easy run. Oh, very loose suspension on this car. You see the car go up and down a few times through the gear shift, but nothing to worry about. Running on a record of 10.55. How close can he go to that? Not bad, 10.62 plus 0.07 of a second. Semi-final time of Competition Eliminator. Jeff During takes on Wayne Jones, and your heart has to go out to Jeff During. Boy, he's running against the fastest small block engine rail in Australia. The rear engine rail takes on the front engine rail, the old versus the new.
It certainly is, and it's a heads-up double C drags to contest, running on a national record of 7.08 seconds. During, red light, it's all over for During. He had to take the chance, but Jones storms on by. 6.92.
Well, you can see this. During had nothing to lose. He knew he couldn't match the speed. He goes just that little bit early. 0.4 of a second separates each of those amber lights. He went just too early.
Yeah.
Goes under the national record, does Jones, by 0.15.
Good run for During, though. 7.42, but not right on the night.
Dragway Engineering Competition Eliminator semi-finals. Graham Silk takes on Debbie Reed. Small block Chevy takes on big block Donovan fuel injection.
Yeah, it's certainly the battle of the two rear engine drags. Oh, Cole, what about this one for the girls? Debbie Reed has brought out the big pull thanks to Mike's Gym out of Dandy Dog. Hey, bit of showmanship or showwomanship.
Well, it certainly is. She's taking the spirit of the things. This may be the Australian title, but she says, why not have a little bit of fun? If the guys can do it, so can the girls.
And we're into the competition now. Debbie Reed brings the car up towards the staging beams. Like her husband, she is a champion drag racer. She wants to go all the way to the finals.
Having a little bit of a look at the motor as one of the officials there, but obviously nothing leaking out. I'd say getting very close to staging. We're watching for Graham Silk to come up. He's moving forward very cautiously. Of course, a 20-second rule will be invoked if necessary. Both cars coming up very close to stage. They're in it now. Up come the revs. Graham Silk away first, much too early, gets the dreaded red light. Debbie Reed very easily into the final.
Oh, what an upset. The national champion, Graham Silk, will go to the Goodyear replay. Hey, I think the car's picked the beans. Oh, no, way too early, Colin. Absolutely. 0.331 reaction time, a big red cherry, and the 7.91 got Debbie Reed through. Semi-finals of Competition Motorcycle, the Ultra Chrome bike of Lou Cotter, Colin, all of the way over from Perth, Western Australia. He's taking on the defending national champion, Paul Andrews from Geelong, the big number one on the side of the bike. Lou Cotter actually went to the grand finals last year, couldn't quite get the title.
It's amazing. Paul Andrews took it off him. Not all that easy. Suzuki versus Kawasaki. The Suzuki underneath Paul Andrews, revving, throbbing as he comes up to the line. And away he goes first. This guy's very hard to beat. Lou Cotter says, hey, I don't care about that. I don't care what your reputation is. Cotter comes past, flies past for an easy win.
Oh, great 9.15 second. We're looking on the Goodyear replay. Andrews seemed to have a good lead, but Cotter, 0.612. Both the reaction times are off, but Cotter, 3.5 tenths under the national record. Easy win. The next pairing in the semi-finals of Competition Motorcycle here at the Goodyear Nationals for 1992. Little Andy Wilson, he's in the Castrol Oils lane, running on the A Street bike record, 9.82 seconds. Long John Phillips running C Street bike, Cole, and he will get the start line. But Andy Wilson's been to the last two finals at the two nationals in comp bike and won them both. Will he go through now?
Well, I tell you what, he's been a crowd favourite for a long time, perhaps ever since he came across from Tasmania. He's got the weight. Wow, did I see a red light on a tree? I did see a red light on a tree. John Phillips red lights himself away. Didn't have to do it. Andrew Wilson takes it nice and easy, sits back, does a 10.86 for an easy win.
How about this? Andy Wilson will watch on the Goodyear replay. The lights coming down. John Phillips, big red cherry. Andy Wilson goes through to the third final in comp bike nationals in 3 years.
Only 0.003 of a second in that red light, incidentally, Gerald. Bob Jane T-Mart's modified semi-final. The car of Eric Gutzward comes into the Castrol lane. Beside him in the Rocket Industries lane, we have the Jag Care V12 of Michael Utting. Hey, Gerald, something going on here. Have a look at this one.
I think there's a bit of out-psyching happening, Colin, because Michael Utting is sitting back. He's letting Goodsward go all the way in. They're just taking their time. Hey, bear in mind, if Goodsward staged, they had 20 seconds.
That's right, and in that 20 seconds he could have moved up. It's definitely a psyching duel here. Now they're almost into stage. Both of them ready. Oh, beautiful lead from Utting. He really did pull the psych trick. I'd say his adrenaline was running. He read the tree to perfection. He controls the race from into the other. Goodsward can't pick him up, and you see the win light coming up. A very clean win for Michael Utting.
Yeah, the Goodyear replay just shows it all right from start to finish. Big difference, over 2/10 in the reaction time. It showed at the end of the quarter mile. Utting through to the final. Greg Roberts and Richard Jansen about to go head-to-head to decide who will meet Michael Utting in the final of the Bob James T-Mart's Modified Eliminator. Roberts has dialed in 9:25, Jansen 10:15. I tell you what, Jansen got out fantastically. Roberts has got a big chase on, goes through, he got him. 7 thousandths of a second win margin to Greg Roberts.
One thing that Modified has proved to me, you just cannot work out who's going to win these races. I was positive that Jansen had him. There you see on the win board, Roberts got up by only 7 thousandths of a second. Goodyear semi-final time for Modified bike. Angelo Ganitas dialed in his A-Modified bike with a 10.70.
And Alan Bleisner, 8.70 over in the Rocket Industries lane. So 2 seconds will separate these two at the start line. Ganitas gets away, Bleisner off in hot pursuit. I tell you what, he's starting to draw them in as they get down towards three-quarter track. No, Ganitas, yes, Bleisner got there. How was that, Colin? I think Ganitas was too hard on the brakes.
Well, I tell you what, that's exactly what happened. We look at it in the replay, and Ganitas seemed to slow down just as they went through the bottom end, and flashing past went Bleisner, and he beats him by 15 thousandths of a second.
The second of the semi-final sees Peter Cochran in the Castrol Oils lane. He's about to take on Phil Parker over on Sam's Animal. Cochran dials in 9.60, Parker 10.75.
Not a lot on the tree. There'll be about 1.5 lights, and you watch Parker. He's going to get away first, and as I said before, he shows absolutely no mercy. If he had a rev counter, I think he'd refuse to look at it. It's all over for some reason or other. Cochran's bike does not get off the line. Parker's well aware of this and takes it nice and easy with a 10.86 at 103.1 miles an hour.
I tell you what, Colin, wasn't far away from his dial-in on the Goodyear replay. Cochran just didn't go anywhere. Something went amiss, and Parker went 10.86 on a 10.75 dial-in. Good run.
The Aussie Trackwear Super Sedan semi-final. David Burke dialed in with a 9.40, and Glenn Jones in the Dodgy Brothers dialed in with an 11.99. Ford versus Holden. Big, huge, humongous block. Small block, would you believe?
580 cubes, and Burke's in hot pursuit. 2.5 seconds he had to wait at the tree, but he's just blown on by Glenn Jones, who gets the winner, 9.61. Hey, Jones went right off song as we see the Goodyear replay. A great lead for David Burke, and ran all of the way to the finish line, 2/10 at the start line and over a 10th at the finish line. Jeff Hislop, the racing head service, Holden Monaro from Sydney, under the watchful eyes of his wife, Cheryl Hislop, running up against Tony Diviak. Diviak's dialed in at 10.92 seconds. Hislop at a 9.70. Colin, they're going to decide who goes to see David Burke in the final of the Aussie Trackwear Super Sedan, and they're racing. Diviak gets out beautifully. He is controlling the race. Here comes Hislop. He can't get him though as they go through the end, and Diviak got through to the final. Bigger racing. I tell you what, they're happy.
And well, they might be, because you have a look at the leave on Tony Diviak. He read those lights to perfection. Be interesting to read. Yes, his reaction time, a 0.48 to a 0.55, controlled the race from one end to the other on a win margin of 99 thousandths of a second. Supergas semi-final comes up. Andrew Roberts comes up in the Rocket Industries lane, and beside him, Hugo de Vincenzo comes up in the Castrol Oils lane in the John Taverna Chassis Super Gas semi-final.
Heads up 990, common dial in for the Super Gas races. One flash of the ambers, both drivers away. What a great lead for Hugo de Vincenzo, the famous pink Holden Commodore. I think he's got this one. Robert Stroh's on by. No, Hugo got there 3,000th of a second. Fuzzy Tamburino, was he happy?
Yeah, a guy that really does show his happiness when something goes right, and it went very, very much right for Hugo de Vincenzo on this particular run. I would say it was almost an even lead. Have a look at that. There was only hundredths of a second in reaction time, and he got to the end by only 3,000ths of a second.
Reaction time was where de Vincenzo actually won the race. Taking a bye through to the final of the John Taverna Chassis Super Gas bracket international champion Stephen Crook. The Rocket Industries car launches a .424 reaction time, 9.86, trying it out for the final where he'll meet Hugo de Vincenzo.
Super Street semi-final time. John Shavkolovich comes up into the Castrol Oils lane, and beside him in the Rocket Industries lane we have Michael McKenna. Both cars dialed in very close to one another. We have a 12.95 for Shavkolovich to a 12.80 for Michael McKenna.
McKenna will have to sit and wait for less than half a light. Shavkolovich got a fantastic jump on the E.H. Holden utility, Colin, and he seems to be just drawing away as they head off down the track and will easily take the win line. Yes, a 13.0 second time, the big win margin, and let's see the Goodyear replay.
Oh, the replay shows that Michael McKenna was a little bit slow, in fact a lot slow, almost half a second to an almost perfect reaction from lane one.
Gary Paciocco has the advantage of the bye through to the final of Super Street Eliminator. The XD Falcon sedan running to 351 cubic inch Cleveland. And Colin, unlike a lot of cars, this car is a manual.
Yes, most of them are automatics as it gives more consistent times over the quarter of a mile. So we see him come back again, but the manually shifted car, certainly a lot harder to operate. They've got to be able to judge the revs, pull the gear shift through, but he's doing a real good job at 12.04 on a normally 12.00 dial-in. Well, Gerald, it's happened. The first of the finals. I tell you what, I've waited all year to see this happen, and now it's upon us. Gary Paciocco takes on
John Shavkolovich over in the Rocket Industries lane, Colin. As you said, the first of the finals, the Dominator Torque Converters Super Street Eliminator at the 1992 Goodyear Nationals here at Calder Park. A great event, and we're about to see the first of 14 national champions as the lights come down. Shavkolovich goes. Paciocco is off in hot pursuit. The manually shifted XD Falcon going up through the gears. He looks to be drawing the Tirana in. We go to the CompuLink system. Yes, Paciocco takes the win.
And a very easy win, a 12.11 on a 12.0 dial-in. He did everything that was expected of him. As you say, he shifted that manually shifted car beautifully. Both of them with almost identical reaction times. A great win for Gary Paciocco, the first champion of the year.
Alan Bleisner in the burnout area, the Rocket Industries lane, dials in 8.70 seconds, about to take on Phil Parker. Parker dialed in at a 10.75. The final of modified motorcycle. Parker's off. Oh, a red light for Alan Bleisner. He did it at the grand finals. He's done it at the Nationals, Cole.
Well, you won't believe how fabulous Phil Parker will feel. I've watched this guy come through quite a few meetings, and he puts everything into this. I've said before, he just revs the bike, has no respect whatsoever for a tacho. Does it with a 10.73 and a win. Fabulous Phil Parker.
The final of Super Sedans brought to us by Aussie Trackwear. In the Castrol lane, David Burke dials in 9.4 10.40. In the Rocket Industries lane, it's Tony Diviak dialing in at a 10.92. Again, Cole, Holden versus Ford.
Holden versus Ford and a 1.5 second wait. That's a big wait again, of course, for Burke, but he's got to sit there. He's got to be very cagey. Diviak's out. Burke didn't wait for too long. Got a beautiful clean green. Can the big Ford take after the Holden? It certainly looks like it at 3/4 track as they go over the line. And David Burke, a 9.49, a good clear win, as we'll see again on the Goodyear replay.
Yeah, good reaction time for Burke, 0.441. It was 1 run and 1 on the start line. Congratulations. Well, Colin, we've just had an all-Victorian Super Sedan final. Now we have an all-South Australian modified eliminator final.
And two different vehicles you really couldn't get. The A hot rod of Roberts running the big V8, and of course the twin 6-cylinder. I know it's a V12, but it sounds like 2 6-cylinders to me. The Jaguar powered car of Michael Utting. A 9.30 for Greg Roberts dial in, and a 9.80 for Michael Utting. Michael Utting gets the lead, takes the best advantage of it, but not for long as Greg comes at him, and Roberts is really hauling down towards the bottom end, pedal to the metal, and he clears it through with a 9.43 at 137 mile per hour. A win for Greg Roberts.
Oh, fantastic. This guy looked as though he wasn't going to come to the Nationals. Didn't have an engine. Oh, friends got together, they got him here. Takes it from the start line. It is the reaction time that got him there. The win margin, 38 thousandths of a second.
The John Taverna Supergas final with Hugo Di Gianvincenzo taking on Mr. Supergas himself, Stephen Crook.
I tell you what, the #1 Supergas racer up against the guy with the number on the side of the car, 990. The index for Supergas, Hugo Di Gianvincenzo. What a beautifully presented Holden Commodore, ramps up and away, heads up racing between these two exponents of Supergas racing all of the way to the finish line. I can't tell the difference. CompuLink says Crook gets there by 20 thousandths of a second.
Well, if you look at this one again, as you say, they are absolutely side by side all the way down to the bottom end, the very end. Look at this, identical times, 9.94. Oh, reaction times is what got it, won and lost on the start line. Goodyear Comp Bike final, Andy Wilson gets his way into the final. Beside him, all the way from Western Australia, Lou Cotter.
And will Andy Wilson take out his third Nationals at 3 attempts? Gee, he's been a terror since he came over from Tasmania. The Tasmanian Tiger, they call him, and he has eaten up the opposition every year.
Well, there's only 0.3 of a second difference in the handicaps here, Gerald, which is 1 light on the tree. So that'll be interesting to find out just how they read these. They're into pre-stage. Up come the revs. Andy Wilson gets a nice clean green. Likewise, Lou Cotter. Andy Wilson again looks over his shoulder, but he sees Cotter riding past him. And I'd say Cotter's got a fairly easy one. He's the new 1992 Comp Bike champion.
We'll go to the Goodyear National replay. You'll see both riders come in, the revs up, lights coming down, and Andy Wilson got a good start, but Lou Cotter, 6:33 reaction time, but 0.5 of a second under the national record. That's a winning performance.
The Epping Street Performance Superstock final sees Tony Busher taking on Donna Sesma.
Tony Busher in the Castrol Oils lane running A Street. Came out of timer just 2 meetings ago, Colin. Set a new national record, 10:55. Donna Sismas is 4/10 slower. She will get the handicap to start by 1 amber light.
Well, that's going to be very difficult for Tony Busher. Whilst he's been dipping under the record, so has Donna Sisma, and this must be going through his mind right now as he comes up into the pre-stage. Only metres to go as he comes up, getting very close. They're about to go. Oh, beautiful lead too quick for Tony Busher. You can see him leave at exactly the same time as Donna Sisma.
Donna Sisma takes the win with another under the national record run of 10.51. We'll go to the Goodyear replay. They say patience is a virtue, Colin. Well, patience means a gold and a Christmas tree this time for Donna Sisma and not for Tony Busher.
Well, she's dipped under the national record by 0.4 of a second, and it's great to see the ladies taking away a gold Christmas tree to Queensland.
And Busher under the national record as well, but not quite his night. We're really getting down to the business end of the meeting, the final of competition eliminator. And will it be a night for the ladies? Debbie Reid coming up into the final, going to take on the awesome small block supercharged dragster of Wayne Jones. Competition eliminator brought to us by Dragway Engineering.
The double C record of 7.08, that's the toughest record in Australia. This is the screamingest small block Chevy that I've ever heard. Look at Paul there. Talking of screaming, the girls in the crowd are screaming for Paul as he guides the car back right now.
Oh, the flames licking out of the header pipes of Wayne Jones' engine. He's been running 6.7 seconds all night. This car is absolutely sensational and has reset the double C dragster record. The revs coming up. Debbie Reid gets away. Here comes Wayne Jones, rounds her up before half track and just drives on by, takes the win. 6.73. The Jones clan absolutely crazy.
And I definitely detected a smile on Bill Jones's face there. I know it was hard to tell, but I tell you what, he'd have to be happy with that run. Oh, Debbie Reid, when you look at the replay, she absolutely drove her heart out trying to win this one. She threw everything at it, but at the halfway mark, it was obvious that Wayne Jones was going to come flashing through, and a .34 under the national record sees him going home as the National Dragway Engineering Competition Eliminator Champion.
The final of Pro Stock Motorcycle here at the 1992 Goodyear Nationals. Cole Russell, we've got Les Donnan on the Trevor Birrell motorcycle running up against Jim Hanlon.
And how often have we seen Les Donnan on a winning situation? This is the time that he really wants to win. You've got to get that Christmas tree. This is the run that really does count. Up to the line, very careful into staging. You'll hear the revs come up once they're staged. The revs starting to come up, Donnan still moving, and away they go, and enormously from both bikes to the halfway mark.
Certainly are. Donnan, the power of the bike, just pulls away through the bottom end. 8.31. Trevor Birrell absolutely ecstatic. The 92 Goodyear's win. Let's go to the replay.
Yeah, it was very hard to pick again. We'll see. Oh, I'd say that Donnan really got him on that reaction. Yes, he most certainly did. He's got almost a tenth of a second on the start, beat him by 3/10. Well, that's it all over Red Rover.
The final of Pro Comp Eliminator. Steve Reid from England versus Jeff the Elkie Burnett from Australia. The United Nations team, Adrian Posibon, has done a fabulous job getting Steve Reid and Bob Meyer together for this team. They're in the final, Colin.
Yes, and against an altered. That's the unusual part about it. Pro Comp, absolutely the bridesmaid at this particular meeting, but boy, isn't it proving popular. They're about to move into the pre-stage area right now. The tension builds up. Reid still to move just a little bit further. We're waiting. The revs start to come up. It's almost time as they go in, right into stage. I'd say they're both into stage now, and away.
And Burnett absolutely locked a lock, and Steve Reid just drives on by. 6.04, 228 miles per hour. Let's go to the Goodyear replay. Sensational. You watch Burnett. It looks as though he got the jump, nearly off the edge of the track. He got the reaction time. He was the half track quicker, Colin, but the dragster 6.04, just 0.05 of a second away from the magical 5-second run.
Rostock final. Missingham takes on Van Dyke. The Holden versus the Pontiac. The Holden, not a real big burnout. Missingham's, well, that was fairly severe from the rear, Gerald.
Yeah, it certainly did, but will the Holden Lion roar in the final? What a debut for Hans Van Dyke, the runner-up last year at Willowbank Raceway. Will he take the title?
Well, we're going to know in a few seconds, because right now they're into the pre-stage as they just move on. In a moment, you're going to hear those revs start to build up. Van Dyke's got the revs up. Listen for this one.
Oh, on the limiter and away, both drivers absolutely sensational to half track. I can't tell them apart, Colin. Let's go to the CompuLink system. Missingham, 8:21.
Oh, what an amazing run from both drivers. I don't believe I would have been able to pick that if I'd have been standing on the finish line.
Not at all, Colin. We see the Goodyear replay. Both drivers coming into the stage. The revs absolutely building up to 8,500 out of the small block. Oh, great lead. Missingham drove to the right-hand side, pulled it back online, and just drove on by Van Dyke.
But have a look at the time ticket at the end. An 8:21 to an 8:24, 300ths of a second, a win to Missingham, and congratulations. The final of Top Fuel Bike, the might of Bill Curry's Kawasaki, takes on the Milwaukee Muscle
of Greg Shepherd. Oh, sensational burnout. The Harley fans going absolutely berserk.
I tell you what, there's a little bit of a staging duel here. Watch Bill Curry. He looked across to Greg Shepherd as much to say, try me on if you dare.
Yes, he did well. 6.92 in qualifying the first ever 6-second parts. They get out from the line. Curry just draws away, looks over his shoulder, shuts off. Here comes Shepherd. No! 7.56. What about the speed, Cole? Only 134 mile an hour.
Oh, look, I tell you what, when you look at this, Curry knew he covered all the way. A slow reaction for Bill Curry, 0.5 of a second, 161 miles an hour, 7.56. He really buttoned off from the eighth of a mile to the end.
It's the final of the funny cars as Peter Russo comes into the burnout area in the Dodge Daytona.
A strong but very short burnout, Gerald. Of course, he's got a bye run. Unfortunately, Jeff Pratt couldn't make it back out, so we're going to see Peter Russo, 2 times champion as of tonight. He's got to just run against himself, but this guy will not rest on his laurels. Watch for an Australian record coming up right now.
Oh, the car launches beautifully against the quarter track. Oh, sparks the car side to side. Russo controls it, turns it off. Pulls the shoots. He looked to be in drama. 8.36 seconds at 84 mile per hour as he goes. Oh, it's on fire, Cole. The car has burst into flames as he's coming to a stop there. Oh, it looks to be a fair bit of drama. The rescue crew will be on the way already. The fire is out.
I would say the fire went out very quickly with the onboard fire extinguisher. We'll watch this from there. Oh, it destroys the clutch as he goes down. Unfortunately, hey, a good eighth of a mile, a 4.31. But then as you see him go through the bottom end, there's a huge explosion comes underneath the whole body. And look at Russell Simpson. He's seen that all before. I tell you what, he is devastated by seeing someone else through that drama.
Well, after 3 action-packed days of racing, Colin, the heavens opened up on the final of Top Fuel Eliminator, and we had to defer it to Sunday morning, and even that was full of its own dramas.
Yes, as soon as the car started up, Ray Ward's car was noticed to have a massive fuel leak. They shut him down, so the final went to Keith Aegis, a bye run, but nevertheless a good run for Keith Aegis, 1992 Top Fuel champion.
The 38,000 fans at Calder Park, though, weren't to be disappointed as Gary Miosevich and the awesome Veeam Engineering jet-powered truck put on a fabulous fire-breathing show.
Well, Gerald, a great event at a great venue.
It certainly was, Colin, and we look forward to seeing everyone back at Calder Park Raceway for the 27th Annual Australian Drag Racing Championships.